Hello and welcome to the Visionary Chronicles. Thanks for joining me again today. I really appreciate it. We've got a great episode for you today, another leadership episode for you. We're going to talk in depth about strategy execution. This is one, it's a little bit of a follow-up to our recent 9-part series, The Road to Visionary Leadership. And I wanted to delve a little bit deeper into it. I had a lot of questions on strategy execution. How do you become generational? And how do you continue with this sustained growth? Not just this one, what I call this one-hit wonder, not even strategy, but just product execution that does not last generations, but really one that just lasts for short term, not long term. So we're going to talk about that today. It's strategy execution, Chronicle 195. We're going to talk about 5 tips I'm going to give you on how to develop a visionary strategy for sustained growth. Many people talk about a strategy, but they really don't. They do a lot of this book smart stuff. So unless you've actually had a strategy you've executed inside of a brand, and I've done this many times with iconic brands that I've been with personally, as well as brands that we work with, Liquid Mind. So it's really one that is more of an art than it is a science. So that's where people kind of get caught off guard as well. Because what it's involved with is strategy, and we'll talk about it in depth, is that most people think numbers. Most people think execution in the marketplace. But what they lose sight of is the visionary strategy of how they become generational. So having studied these visionaries, how did they achieve this generational success? From the Nikes of the world, the Adidases of the world, the Apples of the world, all of these brands, and truly brands, and visionary leaders at the top of these brands, how did they build this strategy of sustained growth? And again, the strategy will go way beyond what most people think. So welcome back to the Visionary Chronicles, where we try to uncover wherever we can the principles of visionary leadership, innovation, and really what encompasses long-term success in the eyes of the beholder. So in this series, we're going to talk about the strategy developing generational success. And I always like to start out with a quote. And this one's from Michael Porter, and it's a classic quote that I'm sure most of you have heard. But I always want to make sure it's one that fits with what we're talking about today. So the essence of strategy is choosing what not to do, from Michael Porter. What a great quote. And most people need to keep this in mind. I hear so many times in personal one-on-one sessions with Liquid Mind and leaders that we talk to, and really anybody that's in a position of influence, is what's the number one thing that you tell people when you're building a strategy or when you're setting a vision, when you're managing, executing that vision, is I don't have enough time. And the first question that I have, I'll whiteboard it with our leaders, is it's okay to say no to your team, to the brand, the company, whatever it may be. And that's where the essence of Michael Porter's quote comes from. The essence of strategy is choosing what not to do. Many people think of what should we do, but when you look at all of the different parallels between success and strategy, it really comes down to many times putting all your efforts towards that which is eliminated through the things that you did not or should not do as a company or as a brand. So in this episode, we'll explore a really critical aspect of leadership is strategy execution. And it's beyond numbers. It's beyond just words. It's really executed through the team and the company and the brand vertically. So we'll dig deeper into these, what I call 5. I'm going to give you 5 essential principles. Explore how you can develop a strategy that ensures long-term growth, innovation, and market leadership, market share leadership. All of these things are important to a brand and a company as a whole. But the visionary side of it is something that becomes generational. When you talk about innovation, innovation is a word that's earned. And I talk about innovation a lot. I talk about branding a lot. I talk about disruption a lot. Disruption is innovation on steroids. And brand is earned. If you're a commodity, you're not a brand. You can call yourself a brand, but you're not authentic. And your community will call bullshit. So you want to make sure that when you're doing this, that you have long-term growth in mind, innovation, and market leadership as your objective. So many companies develop what we call visionary strategies, but few of those companies execute them to achieve sustained growth. And here I'll give you an example. So when we talk about a strategy, are you thinking short-term or are you thinking long-term? Or are you thinking sustained growth? And what I move leaders away from is short-term foresight, long-term foresight, to sustained growth, future casting. So what sustained growth is, the objective being that we're going to be in business for generations. So how do we achieve getting on the track to sustained growth and stay on that track in the same direction towards our vision and executing that? So that's what I'll talk about today. So visionary leaders understand that strategy really isn't just about planning. I mean, anybody can plan, right? I mean, that doesn't really set you apart as a leader saying, hey, I'm a great planner. I don't think that really sets anybody on fire. It's about disciplined execution, adaptability, and long-term thinking for sustained leadership. So when you talk about these, disciplined execution, adaptability, and long-term thinking, not a lot of people think about that when they're doing their strategies. And that's really when we whiteboard with Liquid Mind and the leaders that we talk with is we say, what do you think strategy is? Well, it's numbers. It's talking through your vision and executing it through numbers. I mean, many times people don't even think about the discipline of execution, nor do they think about having to adapt. Think of all the companies that got caught off guard with COVID. And I'm not saying caught off guard from the standpoint, because everybody got caught off guard. But there were people that had contingencies of adaptability. If something does happen, what do we do? So you adapt, but you never change course as to where your vision is. That's really important. You can actually be agile, adaptable, but still reach your destination. You just have to get back on course. It's those that stay off course, that lose sight of their vision, and have to set a new destination and start over that are non-generational. And long-term thinking is the third piece of that puzzle. So how do you create and execute a strategy that drives continuous growth, innovation, and market leadership? Okay, great question, right? Pretty easy answer to that question, but it's actually pretty involved. So in this episode, what I'll do is I'll break down 5 key tips to developing a visionary strategy for sustained growth. And the first is, what you need to do is really define a clear long-term vision for sustained growth. And I call this future casting. And I have it in the new book I'm releasing in June, The Visionary Leader, where I talk about 18 of the greatest leaders across all generations and what are the principles that led them to successfully execute their vision and how do they sustain that. So great leaders see beyond the present. They build strategies around 5, 10, or even 20-year horizons. And they do it through sustained growth strategy. So the difference is one is fluid and one is piecemealed. So you need to make sure that when you're looking at your long-term vision, that it's for sustained growth. How do we achieve sustained growth? So whether that's through your product portfolio, whether that's through your services, whether that's through innovation, whether that's through a disruption, all of these should be part of your strategy and ones that you plan for. What happens if there's something that disrupts our industry that we need to adapt to? Make sure that you have that contingency in there. So it's contingency plans, It's also bullet pointing where you're going to disrupt your industry, innovate, gain market share, whatever it happens to be. Don't just put numbers on the board and assign resources to those numbers to execute a plan. You need to have a more detailed, sustained growth strategy. So a visionary strategy, when you look at it, is a mission that inspires teams and aligns efforts and resources. And a great example would be Jeff Bezos when he built Amazon. He went through all kinds of disruptions in his industry. Started out as a bookstore and eventually went to services platform, SaaS, whatever it happens to be. Jeff wanted to conquer everything. So he built Amazon. His intention then was to redirect and adapt and build a customer-first, long-term vision that allowed it to dominate not just one industry, which was his original plan, but multiple industries. So your first is define a clear long-term vision for sustained growth. Make sure you map this out where it's fluid, not chopped in pieces. Number 2 is align your strategy with a purpose and culture. And this one's probably, I would say, they're all important. But I would say if you're going to ask me, which is the one that most leaders, when they think about building a visionary culture and sustained growth, that they never put on part of their strategic plan? Well, number 1 actually is purpose. Number 2 is culture. Most people think, I'll just set a vision, and then what we'll do is we'll execute a strategy around that vision, chop it up into 1, 5 short-term and long-term planning. We'll assign resources, and then we'll just execute that plan. Well, yeah, that's the traditional way of doing it. But what they've left out of the mix is, what do you stand for, which is purpose? And number 2, what type of culture do you want for your company and brand, and how authentic and how passionate are you around building that culture? So a successful strategy is just not about market positioning. It must align with your brand's core purpose and culture, or else you will not be successful if you're not authentic and or if you don't have a purpose or a culture in the first place. So people buy into brands with a mission, not just product or services. Think of yourself. If you're any passionate leader at all, and through your career, whether you're starting out or whether you're in an executive level position, manager level position, or entry level position, you want to be with brands that have a passionate culture, that have a purpose in what they're doing. So it's not just about products. Anybody can build great products, by the way. I was heading up product in marketing at Adidas and TaylorMade, and also with K-Swiss and Oakley. And yeah, they have great products, but they also had great leaders. So you want to make sure it's not just product or services, but you have a mission that aligns with your purpose and your culture. An example, which is the greatest example, is Patagonia's strategy aligns with sustainability, environmental responsibility. And what does this do? It actually drives both brand loyalty and long-term growth. Brand loyalty through brand equity, long-term growth through enhanced customer lifetime value. People are coming back to Patagonia because of their culture and their purpose. They're authentic and they stand by what they say. So number 2 is align strategy with purpose and culture. Number 3 is foster agility and adaptability. What I mean by foster is that within that, teach people through your actions and through your authentication to be agile and adaptable. Everybody needs to have that. Panic is not a strategy. The world's most successful companies are visionary but adaptable. They'll make changes, but they won't change their course. Their course to their destination. They know where their destination is. Now, if it's a switchback where they're going back and forth, that's fine because now you're adapting. But you never lose sight of what your destination is. They evolve without losing their core purpose as a brand and as a company. And I use Quicksilver as an example. They had some tough times in the 80s and late 80s when the market was going through a lot of disruption, a lot of bankruptcies in the independent retail side. The action sports industry was going through some very tough times, a lot of bankruptcies in the industry, and Quicksilver hung on through that. And they knew their retailers were having a tough time. So they delayed AR receipts, accounts receivable receipts, in order for their specialty retailers to recover. And guess what? They were rewarded with that. They were a great company at the time, but they became legendary after that. And everybody remembered them as a result of that. And they grew significantly faster than they ever would if they hadn't committed to being authentic. So leaders must have strategies that allow for market shifts, technological advances, and competitive disruption. Because if you're not disrupting, I can guarantee you somebody else in your industry is. And if they're not, you're not in an industry that is innovative, nor is it a brand. So if you're just following other companies, as with Skechers, which is fine, Skechers is doing great, but look at what they do. They're a follower and they're a commodity brand with a competitively priced product, but that's their key to success, is competitively priced. They're not the leader. They follow technologies and innovations of others in the industry, and that's fine. An example of someone and a brand that actually did adapt and had gone through market shifts and technological advances is Netflix. And they started as if you remember back in the day, a DVD rental company, but they really pivoted to streaming at the time, which was unheard of, and content production, leading the entertainment industry, and they had a significant leapfrog effect over their competition. At the time, they really didn't have competition because nobody was thinking about streaming. So they basically disrupted the industry and then invented a new industry. So that's number 3. Number 4 is, and I love this one, and you know who I'm going to talk about here, is execute relentlessly and measure success. So execution is where strategy meets reality. An idea is only an idea until you execute it and commercialize it. There's a lot of great ideas that have died on the drawing board, and I talk about the ones that I have the most compassion for, which are the concept car designers that leave these beautiful concept car designs on the board, and I've seen them. And so without proper execution, even the best strategy will fail. So set measurable KPIs that track progress along the way, and refine your strategy continuously to achieve success. So you've got this step process to climbing the mountain. Just make sure that whether it's switchbacks or whether it's stumbling, that you get back up and continue to march towards the summit. And here's your example, is Apple's success comes from flawless execution, product excellence, and disciplined leadership. Now, I'll put a caveat on this one. As you've seen, I've criticized Apple lately, but this goes back to the Steve days where he gave and Tim Cook inherited this, what I call this innovation wave, this product pipeline that they surfed for 15 years. And it's coming to the end. So their success came from flawless execution, product excellence, and disciplined leadership. So for you, that is a lesson, is to become generational. You need to be authentic, but you also need to make sure that you're executing, measuring success, but doing it relentlessly, which means not stopping. And that's what happened with Apple. Think of the last great product that they invented. It's hard to remember until back when you see Steve with the iPad. Number 5 is build and empower a visionary team, not just yourself. Nobody executes a strategy or a vision on your own. So stop trying to think you can do it. And number 2, have the humility to give credit to others. No leader executes a strategy alone. Success comes from empowering a team of visionary thinkers. That's where culture and purpose come in. So create a culture of accountability, and even Steve had accountability with everybody that was on the team. And innovation and collaboration to sustain long-term generational success. And an example, kind of a near-term example, which is today, is Tesla thrives because Elon Musk empowers engineers and innovators to push limits of technology. He inspires them, but he also understands them. So he's authentic. And that's what you need to be as a leader as well. Authentic with your team and understanding what it takes in order for you to execute a vision flawlessly. So the 5 points again on setting a strategy for sustained long-term growth is: number 1, define a clear long-term vision. Number 2 is align strategy with purpose and culture. Number 3 is continue to foster agility and adaptability inside of your brand. Number 4 is execute relentlessly, but ensure that you're measuring success. Number 5 is build and empower a visionary team that is passionate about your culture, your purpose, and your vision, and have the capability and the passion to execute it relentlessly. So some of the final thoughts on this, if I could, on strategy execution as a competitive advantage, and that's kind of the ending I have here, is developing a visionary strategy isn't only half the battle. Execution is what turns strategy into sustained success. So remember that. And when you have a strategy, it's only as good as it is on paper. And without some type of purpose behind your strategy, a culture around those visionary thinkers that are going to help you execute that strategy, it'll never be generational, nor will it ever be sustained success. So as you build your leadership roadmap, focus on a few things. What I want you to focus on is, number 1, clarity. Number 2, adaptability. Number 3, execution. And number 4, empowering your team. Visionary leaders, remember, visionary leaders don't create just plans. They bring them to life with relentless discipline and a long-term mindset. So get out of your team's way. Once you've set your vision, your purpose, and have a strategic plan that's generational and built for sustained success. It's a challenge, I know. But I've given you 5 tips to at least get a start and examples of those that have executed it relentlessly. So I want to thank you for tuning into the Visionary Chronicles again today. I know your time is very precious. If you've enjoyed this episode, I always say if you could subscribe, that would be great. I would really appreciate it. But by doing so, it keeps you up to date on the latest insights into our leadership, innovation, and brand strategy. Also, if you haven't tuned into my YouTube studio channel, at Brian Smeltzer. Right now, I think I've got a bunch of shorts up there, but I've also got all of the video plus verbal podcast up there as well. And we've gotten a lot of great feedback on that, and we've got it all detailed for you, subject by subject, episode by episode. You can go back and take a look at the road to visionary leadership as well. But that's up there as well at the at Brian Smeltzer, my YouTube studio. So stay tuned for our next episode of the Visionary Chronicles, where we have some, I'm going to say, groundbreaking episodes coming up as we interview and discuss some of the world's most impactful visionary leaders, and I'll keep it at that. You probably don't know you probably know who they are, but you wouldn't think we'd be interviewing them. Let's put it that way. So do not miss those episodes. So until next time, keep innovating, keep leading, and keep shaping the future. Thank you for your continued support. And I look forward to hearing from you soon. So stay true, stay authentic, be different, and be great, but also always enjoy the journey along the way. Thank you for tuning into the Visionary Chronicles, and we look forward to the next episode.